So you guys seem like you were very close to the financial crisis when it happened. Only seen a bunch of movies. How accurate were those movies to like what was actually going on?
Well, I mean, I'll be very honest. I'm just now getting to the point that we are 17 years hence where I can actually start to watch them because I was
Wow.
like, I don't need to watch,
What
Mm.
happened?
Steve Carell. Well, it wasn't like he was playing me, but I don't
Yeah.
need to watch the fictional representation of this. I freaking lived it. So
Mhm.
I will say this. I mean, I think what Hollywood does well that we try to do is when there's a story and when you care about people versus being like, did you know that CDO squares were actually based on faulty collateral? Like boring.
Mhm.
No one wants to watch that movie. So storytelling is something that we've embraced as a way to get big concepts into your brain. We have an entire podcast where we just recap HBO's industry because it's like, I can't really get you to care about forward starting interest rate swaps. But if you see somebody in an episode yelling at their trader for that price, you're going to care about it. So I think that they did a good job overall getting people, there's that like famous scene with Ryan Gosling where he's breaking down. It's like, it's a Jenga board, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so long story short, I've like seen enough clips to kind of be dangerous, but having lived it, I will say this. I think that people really don't understand the degree to which it felt like we were standing on a cliff looking into the abyss.
Mhm.
And I mean, my story I've shared before on the podcast, and we can get into it if you want, but I was fortunate enough to be I've had 2 great years, to not have any student loans, and be like, "You know what? Maybe I'm gonna go, like, be a chef in Italy or, like, discover myself." But my poor husband had just graduated from Wharton with $150,000 worth of debt, and he started on September 15th at Lehman Brothers and showed up to a firm that didn't exist on his first day.
Wow.
So, I mean, being 29 years old and thinking about moving back in with your mom in Baltimore, Maryland, like that, I think is truly staring into the abyss relative to
Yeah.
what I had to go through.
Yeah, and I mean, look, but I was across the street from Jen because, like, if you ever go to New York City, you had Lehman Brothers and Morgan Stanley, like, they're right there in Times Square. And I mean, it was, look, we were very junior. We were an analyst. We were cheap. I mean, like, people weren't firing us, but you also had people who were at Lehman, for example, and I think the narrative is like nobody paid. And honestly, like, the people who they had their whole net worth tied up in Lehman Brothers stock, and like, everything went to zero. So I mean, the employees at a lot of these banks, they actually like did pay. And I will say it's one other thing where, we can talk about this a little bit because I know we want to talk private credit. I also think that part of the narrative is like there's a little bit of almost the personal responsibility that people want to gloss over when it comes to some of these loans and the mortgages that were taken on by the public. And, it's funny. We're going to do a video or we're going to put some content out about gating. And my husband and I got stuck in a fund that got gated. And so basically that's a big thing these days where it's like you have this push for people investing in like private credit, and private credit funds like Blue Owl have started to limit redemption. So it's like you invest money in this fund and they say you can get 5% of the fund back in some time period. But if too many people do that, they can say nobody's getting their money out. And that's called a gate. Gating sucks. By the way, it's also a feature. It's not necessarily a bug because if you have these are long dated like investments that this fund has made. And if you have tons of people trying to pull their money out, they have to sell at fire sale prices and everyone in the fund basically gets screwed.
Mm.
So there's that little bit of, I do think that sometimes people like to gloss over that. I keep saying like personal responsibility, but I mean, as someone who was in a fund that got gated, my husband and I also, we were living in New York City. We needed to move to Massachusetts. We had put money into, it was actually Blackstone's REIT. It was called B REIT. They gated and it was the most pain in the ass thing to get out of. It was like, we had to like write freaking like wet signatures and put in these redemptions. It was like they made it so hard to get out of, and it was like obnoxious AF. But also like I don't know, we like probably should have read the fine print. So anyway, back to the whole point on the financial crisis. Like it was scary as fuck when you were in it. But I do think that the narrative around it is like these terrible bankers, like who nobody got hurt. I mean, again, a lot of the bankers did suffer, and ultimately, I do think that we're missing kind of the bigger structural thing about how we got into that mess in the first place. Because anyway, that's a whole other story for another day.
I
Thank
don't
you
even
for
want to know
that.
where you guys were during the global financial crisis. Like,
No,
were
you don't.
we
You don't,
in-
Jen. You
You
don't.
guys were in second grade.
Were you
born
born?
yet? Who knows?
That's pretty accurate.
I was like third or fourth grade, I think.
Yeah. Yep. So it was interesting though, because at that point you are old enough to see that it is impacting people. People are stressed out, right? Your parents, depending upon obviously, what you're dealing with or what you're around. But yeah, I mean, I had a parent in the banking sector at the time, so you start to see like the consolidations happening, like the name of the company that they're working for is different now and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But
Well,
so
and I will
anyways,
add one
yeah.
more thing. The group that I was in went from 40 people when I started to 3 because they basically had to like there was just like rounds and rounds of layoffs. So it's just like tons of people losing their jobs. And obviously that did trickle through to the rest of the economy because it's one of these things where I do think that the bellwether for what's to come often is what's happening in banks. Like banks tend to they start to fire people first and then it's like and then the rest of the economy starts to shake. Not because like it's because of that. It's just that it's one of these things where it's like the bellwether. It's like that's the sign that shit's starting to go bad.
Hey, you made it to the end of the clip. That means you're probably enjoying this. And if so, just know that you can catch us live every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to see the full version of this episode, you can click the link in the description down below. Otherwise, YouTube thinks that you will enjoy this next.